I am Jessica Sloan, the campaign manager who spent 18 months of my life putting David Thorne on the path to becoming governor of California. Our victory was all but sealed by a scandalous video that exposed his opponent in a dirty deal. But there was one horrifying truth: that video was a deepfake. When I confronted him, David Thorne, the man I trusted, coldly threatened to destroy me and turn me into an outcast if I dared to speak the truth. He believed he could silence me with his hidden power. I trembled, wondering if I was reckless to challenge an entire empire. But the moment I discovered that the person holding the original evidence, demanding $5 million, was Leo Vance, the 19-year-old son of the man we once defeated, my fear ignited into fire. They think they are preparing a victory speech. What they do not know is that I am preparing the eulogy that will bury their entire fraudulent empire. The roar of the campaign headquarters was a physical thing, a wave of sound and energy that hit you the moment you walked through the door. It smelled of stale coffee, adrenaline, and the ozone tang of overworked servers. It was the scent of victory, and for the past 72 hours, it had been the only air I breathed. My name is Jessica Sloan, and for 18 months I had poured every ounce of my life into the man at the center of this storm, David Thorne. It's a bloodbath, Jess. Complete and utter bloodbath. Sarah Jenkins, my press secretary, shouted over the din, her eyes wide with manic glee. She shoved a tablet into my hands. The screen was filled with scrolling news headlines. Vance campaign in freefall after leaked video. Governor caught in compromising position with lobbyist. Ethics committee to launch immediate investigation. I allowed myself a small, tight smile. Keep the pressure on, Sarah. No mercy. I want every surrogate on every network hammering the ethics angle. He's not just immoral, he's a security risk. Already on it, she chirped, her fingers flying across her phone. We're not just winning this thing, we're going to salt the earth where his career used to be. I navigated the chaotic floor, a sea of young, sleep-deprived volunteers high on the prospect of being on the winning side. Phones rang incessantly. Keyboards clattered like a hailstorm. On the massive screens that lined the far wall, David's face was everywhere. Handsome, earnest, the picture of integrity. Next to him, they played the video on a loop. Governor Marcus Vance, a man who had been in politics since before I was born, looking disheveled and drunk, making a deal in a dimly lit hotel room with a well-known corporate lobbyist. It was grainy, shot on a hidden camera, but the audio was damningly clear. Vance was promising state contracts in exchange for a hefty, untraceable donation to a private fund. It was the kind of career-ending scandal you dream of in this business. An October surprise delivered on a silver platter, just 1 week before Election Day. Jessica, I turned. Ben Carter, our head of data analytics and the quiet soul of our operation, stood behind me, looking uncomfortable amidst the celebration. While Sarah lived for the chaos, Ben existed in a world of numbers, polls, and clean data. What's up, Ben? Did the overnight polls come in? I asked, expecting more good news. He nodded, pushing his glasses up his nose. They're not just good, they're seismic. We're up 12 points. That's outside the margin of error, outside the margin of anything, really. We've won. Then why do you look like you just found a bug in your code? Ben hesitated, glancing around the room. It's the video, he said, lowering his voice. I've been running it through some analysis software, just for my own curiosity. My smile faded. And there's an audio artifact, he said, pulling me towards his workstation in the corner. It's almost undetectable to the naked ear, but the spectral analysis shows a slight anomaly in the 15 kilohertz range. It's a ghost frequency, something you sometimes see when audio has been manipulated, processed through a deep learning model. I stared at the waveform on his screen, a jagged green line that meant nothing to me. Manipulated how? You think it's fake? The word felt absurd, a foreign object in my mouth. I'm not saying it's fake, he backpedaled quickly. I'm just saying the compression is weird. It's too clean in some places and too noisy in others. It's probably nothing. A result of being recorded on a cheap device and then enhanced for clarity. Forget I said anything. We're celebrating, right? But I couldn't forget it. Ben was a genius. He didn't see the world in terms of politics or people. He saw it in patterns, and he had just spotted a break in the pattern. Later that evening, David himself arrived. The room erupted. He moved through the crowd like a rock star, shaking hands, hugging volunteers, his smile a megawatt beacon of hope and change. He was born for this. At 42, he had the perfect blend of youthful energy and seasoned gravitas. I had found him when he was a state senator with big ideas and little name recognition. I had built this entire machine around him, crafted his message, honed his image. His victory was my victory. He finally reached me, pulling me into a warm hug. "We did it, Jess," he whispered in my ear, his voice thick with emotion. "Can you believe it? We actually did it." "The polls look incredible, David," I said, pulling back, trying to keep my voice even. "But this video, where did it come from?" He waved a dismissive hand. "Some anonymous patriot, I guess, dropped in the inbox of a friendly blogger. Does it matter? It's the truth. We've all heard the rumors about Vance for years. This just confirms it. The Vance campaign is calling it a fabrication, a sophisticated fake." David laughed, a rich, confident sound that filled the room. "Of course they are. What else can they say? Yes, I'm a corrupt old fossil who sells out his constituents. Come on, Jess, don't get spooked. This is the knockout punch we needed. This is how the game is played." He squeezed my shoulder, his eyes locking onto mine. They were the same eyes I'd seen convince millionaire donors and union workers alike, eyes that promised a better future. But tonight, for the first time, I saw something else in them. A flicker of something hard and cold, a glint of steel beneath the charm. That night, I went back to my empty apartment, the cheers of the headquarters still ringing in my ears. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, replaying Ben's words, replaying David's easy dismissal. This is how the game is played. I opened my laptop and pulled up the video. I wasn't a tech expert like Ben, but I watched it again and again. I watched Vance's mouth form the words. I watched the way his hand gestured, the slight slump of his shoulders. It all looked real. Too real, maybe. My gut, the instinct that had guided me through a dozen winning campaigns, was screaming at me. Just as I was about to close the laptop, a notification popped up in the corner of my screen. A new email. The sender was an anonymous, encrypted address. The subject line contained only one word: proof. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the email. The body was short, just a few lines of text. "You know it's a lie. You're smarter than that. I have the source code, the unrendered files, the digital signature of the program that created the Vance video. I can prove without a shadow of a doubt that it's a deepfake. But the truth isn't free. $5 million, untraceable crypto. You have 48 hours to decide if your conscience is worth the price." I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was a reality laid out in cold, hard text. Ben was right. David had lied to me. The entire foundation of our imminent victory, the victory I had dedicated my life to, was built on a fraud. And now, a stranger held the power to either bury the truth forever or to bring my entire world crashing down around me. My world, once a meticulously organized grid of strategies, talking points, and poll numbers, had fractured into a million sharp-edged pieces. The email wasn't a threat. It was a diagnosis. It confirmed the sickness I felt in my gut. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, the hacker's words burning behind my eyelids. $5 million. It wasn't just a ransom for the truth, it was the price tag on my soul. The next morning, the campaign headquarters was somehow even more electric. The victory lap had begun. Sarah was practically bouncing off the walls, fielding calls from major news outlets begging for an exclusive interview with David. "Good Morning America wants him tomorrow, Jess. The Today Show is offering a full hour. We're not just in the big leagues, we own the stadium," she said, thrusting a cup of coffee into my hand. Tasted like ash. "Stall them," I said, my voice flat. "Tell them we're focusing on the ground game for the final stretch. Don't commit to anything yet." Sarah's face fell. "Stall them, Jess, this is our moment. We need to capitalize on this momentum. Vance is drowning, we should be holding his head underwater." "Just do it, Sarah," I snapped, my tone sharper than I intended. She recoiled slightly, surprised by my harshness. I softened my voice. "Look, I just want to control the narrative completely. Let's not seem overconfident. Humility plays well with the undecideds." It was a plausible lie, the kind I'd spun 1,000 times. She bought it, nodding eagerly before rushing off to manage the media frenzy. I scanned the room for Ben. He was at his desk, as always, lost in his monitors. The frantic energy of the room seemed to bend around him, leaving him in a small pocket of tranquility. I walked over, leaning against his cubicle wall. "Anything new on that audio artifact?" I asked, keeping my voice low and casual. He didn't look up from his screen. I ran a deeper diagnostic. The metadata on the video file is scrubbed, completely clean, which is, in itself, not clean at all. A raw file from a hidden camera should have fragmented messy data. This file has been professionally sanitized. "Meaning?" He finally turned to look at me, his eyes serious. "Meaning it didn't come from a hidden camera in a hotel room. It came from a rendering farm." "Jessica, I can't prove it conclusively without the source files, but I'd bet my career this video was created, not captured." His words landed like body blows. There it was, confirmation. "Okay, Ben, keep this between us. Don't talk to anyone. Let me handle it." He nodded slowly. "Be careful, Jess. Whatever this is, it's bigger than a simple campaign trick." My next stop was David's office. His door was closed. Liam Gallagher, David's chief of staff and oldest friend, stood guard outside, his face a mask of practiced calm. Liam was the pragmatist, the one who handled the messy realities while David sold the dream. "He's on the phone with the DNC chair," Liam said, blocking my way. "She's ecstatic. They're already talking about the 2028 presidential primary." "I need to see him, Liam. It's urgent." Something in my tone must have cut through his professional veneer. He studied my face for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Give me 5 minutes." 5 minutes later, I was sitting in a leather chair opposite David's desk. He was beaming, radiating a confidence that was almost blinding. Liam stood by the window, his arms crossed, a silent observer. "Jess, great news," David began. "The party is consolidating all their resources behind us for the final week. They're calling it a sure thing." I didn't smile. I placed my phone on his polished mahogany desk and slid it towards him. The hacker's email was open on the screen. He glanced at it, his smile unwavering. Then he read it. The smile didn't vanish, but it changed. It became something fixed and artificial, like a mask suddenly glued in place. "Spam," he said, pushing the phone back to me. "The opposition is getting desperate, trying to spook us with ridiculous conspiracy theories." "It's not a theory, David," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Ben analyzed the video. The metadata is scrubbed. The audio is synthesized. It's a deepfake. A brilliant one, but a fake nonetheless. And now someone has the source code. They're demanding $5 million. David leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. He looked at Liam, then back at me. The charming, inspirational candidate vanished. In his place was a cold, calculating stranger. "The goal, Jessica," he said slowly, as if explaining a complex idea to a child, "is to win. To get into a position where we can actually help people. To fix the broken system that a man like Marcus Vance has exploited for 30 years. Do you agree that is the goal?" "Our goal is to win honorably," I countered, my stomach twisting into a knot. He let out a short, humorless laugh. "There's no such thing. There's winning and there's losing. Vance has been taking illegal money, killing environmental bills for oil lobbyists, and gutting education for decades. We all know it, but we could never prove it. So we gave the world a version of the truth they could finally see. We created a scenario that is morally, if not factually, accurate. The ends justify the means." I felt sick. "The ends? You built your entire platform on transparency and integrity. You lied to me. You lied to the voters. You lied to everyone." "I did what was necessary," he shot back, his voice rising. He stood up and leaned over the desk, his charisma now weaponized into pure intimidation. "And you were a part of it. You're the manager of this campaign. You think you can walk away from this with clean hands? If this comes out, you go down with me. No, you go down instead of me. You'll be the rogue campaign manager who acted without my knowledge." Liam finally spoke, his voice a low rumble. "He's right, Jess. Your fingerprints are on everything. Every press release, every ad that attacked Vance's character based on that video. You're complicit, whether you knew it or not." The trap slammed shut. He wasn't just admitting it, he was implicating me. He was making me an accessory. "I won't be a part of this," I said, standing up, my legs trembling. "I'll resign." David's expression turned venomous. "Resign? You think it's that simple? Let me be perfectly clear, Jessica. If you even think about walking, I will destroy you. Not just your career, every journalist you've ever had a drink with, every off-the-record comment you've ever made will be used against you. Every tough call you've made on a past campaign will be reframed as a corrupt backroom deal. By the time I'm done, you won't just be fired, you'll be a pariah. A cautionary tale. You'll never work in this town or any town ever again. Now, sit down and let's figure out how we're going to handle this blackmail attempt." I stood there, frozen, the air sucked from my lungs. He wasn't bluffing. I had seen him dismantle opponents with a single, well-placed whisper. He had the power, the connections, and now the motivation to utterly annihilate me. I had created a king, and now he was demanding I kneel. I walked out of his office in a daze, the muffled sounds of the celebrating campaign staff sounding like a funeral dirge. I was trapped. My principles, my reputation, my entire professional life, he held it all in his hands. When I got back to my desk, my laptop chimed with another notification. A second email from the hacker. "Time is running out, Ms. Sloan. To help you make your decision, here's a small sample of my product." Attached was a single image file. I clicked on it. It was a screenshot from the video's editing software. On the screen was Marcus Vance's face, but behind him, instead of the lavish hotel room, was a sterile green screen. In the corner, a line of code was visible, a digital watermark I knew could be traced. It was the gun, and the smoke was still curling from the barrel. My choice was no longer abstract. It was right there, in a single, damning JPEG. Pay the ransom and live with the lie, or refuse and be consumed by the fire I had helped to start. The screenshot burned on my retina, a digital stain that I couldn't wash away. The green screen behind Marcus Vance's rendered face was a verdict. David hadn't just bent the rules, he'd shattered the very concept of reality and expected me to sweep up the shards. His threats echoed in my head, a perfect cage of fear and complicity. He was right. I was trapped. My own ambition had led me to this point. I had wanted to win so badly that I'd ignored the flickers of darkness in him, choosing to see only the brilliant light he projected. I spent the next 24 hours in a fugue state. I went through the motions at the headquarters, approving ad copy, fielding calls from donors, and smiling until my face ached. Every cheer from a volunteer felt like a jeer. Every congratulatory handshake felt like a handcuff snapping shut on my wrist. David and Liam watched me, their gazes a constant, silent reminder of the sword hanging over my head. I needed to understand the enemy. Not David, but the one who held the strings, the hacker. Who were they? What did they really want? Was it just money, or was there something more? Late that night, I drove to a quiet bar on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place with dark wood, sticky floors, and no political pundits on the television. I was meeting Marco Reyes, or Recode, as he was known in the less savory corners of the internet. I'd used Marco once before, years ago, to do some opposition research that skirted the edges of legality. He was a gray hat hacker, a digital mercenary who operated in the murky space between corporate security and outright crime. He slid into the booth opposite me, a thin, wired man who looked like he survived on caffeine and pure code. "Jess, long time no see," he muttered, not making eye contact. "This better be good. I had to pull myself away from cracking the new Pentagon firewall for this." "It's good," I said, sliding a plain envelope across the table. It contained $10,000 in cash, a down payment. "I need you to trace an email, anonymized, encrypted, probably bounced through a dozen servers from here to Vladivostok." He picked up the envelope without opening it, judging its weight. "Tracing is for amateurs. You want to know who sent it. Their name, their location, what they had for breakfast. That's not tracing, that's digital divination. It'll cost you more." "Just find them, Marco," I said, my voice tight. I forwarded him the hacker's email from a burner phone. He glanced at it, his eyebrows raising slightly. "Deepfake ransom? Spicy. This is big league stuff, Jess. You're playing with fire." "I am the fire," I lied, trying to project an aura of control I didn't feel. "Find them." For the next day, silence. The hacker's 48-hour deadline was ticking down. At the office, the pressure was immense. Sarah was frantic. "The final debate is tomorrow night, Jess. Vance is going to come out swinging, calling the video a hoax. David needs to be prepared to bury him on live television." I sat in on the debate prep. It was surreal. I fed David lines about integrity and truth, all while knowing our entire campaign was a house of cards. He delivered the lines perfectly, his voice ringing with sincere conviction. He was a master. He had even convinced himself. "This is the kill shot," he practiced, staring into a mock camera. "Governor Vance can scream fake all he wants, but the people of California saw with their own eyes who he is. He isn't a public servant, he's a walking auction house, selling our future to the highest bidder." I felt a wave of nausea. I had written that line myself, weeks ago, long before I knew what a grotesque hypocrisy it would become. That night, with less than 12 hours left on the hacker's clock, my burner phone vibrated. It was a message from Marco. "Got him. He's good, but I'm better." Used a zero-day exploit in the encryption protocol he used. "Sloppy. Sent you his location and ID. The rest of my fee is now due." A file was attached. My hand trembled as I opened it. It was a dossier. The hacker's name was Leo Vance. Address, a dorm room at Stanford University. Major, computer science. And then the final gut-wrenching detail, age, 19. Relation to Marcus Vance, son. The room spun. It wasn't a professional blackmailer. It wasn't a rival political operative. It was a kid. A terrified, brilliant kid trying to save his father's life. The $5 million, it wasn't greed. It was desperation. A wild, impossible attempt to buy back his father's reputation, to undo what we had done. Suddenly, everything shifted. This wasn't a political game of chess anymore. It was a human tragedy. I pictured this 19-year-old boy, holed up in his dorm room, wielding the only weapon he had to fight an unwinnable war. He wasn't attacking us, he was defending his family. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't sit in my apartment anymore. I couldn't face the team. I had to look this boy in the eye. I drove the hour south to Palo Alto, the freeway lights blurring into streaks. I found the dorm building, a modern concrete and glass structure buzzing with late-night student activity. I walked through the halls, my heels clicking awkwardly on the linoleum. I found the room number from Marco's file. A piece of paper was taped to the door with a meme about coding. It felt so achingly normal. I knocked. For a long moment there was no answer. I knocked again, harder. The door creaked open a few inches. A young man peered out. He had tired, frightened eyes that were the exact same shade of blue as his father's. He was just a boy. "Leo Vance?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. He flinched at the sound of his name. He knew he'd been caught. "Who are you?" "My name is Jessica Sloan," I said. "I run the Thorn campaign. We need to talk." His face paled. He tried to slam the door shut, but I was faster, putting my foot in the way. "Please," I said, the word coming out as a plea. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to understand." He hesitated, then slowly, he opened the door. Leo's dorm room was a chaotic landscape of teenage life and high-tech warfare. Clothes were piled on a chair, textbooks lay open on the floor, but the centerpiece of the room was a formidable triple-monitor computer setup, glowing in the dark. The air smelled of cold pizza and the faint hum of cooling fans. He didn't offer me a seat. He just stood by the desk, a cornered animal, watching my every move. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. It cracked with a mixture of fear and defiance. "It doesn't matter," I said gently. "Leo, the $5 million, that's not possible. Even if it were, it wouldn't solve anything. The video is out there, the damage is done." His eyes welled up, and for a second the tough hacker facade crumbled, revealing the scared kid underneath. "I had to try something," he blurted out, his voice choked with emotion. "They're destroying him. My dad, he's not a perfect man, he's made compromises, but he's not this, he's not a crook. He wouldn't do what that video shows." "I know," I said, those two words hung in the air between us. His head snapped up, his eyes searching my face for any hint of deception. I know it's a fake, Leo. I didn't when it was released, but I know now." He sank into his desk chair, the fight draining out of him. "Then why? Why are you still letting it happen? You're in charge, you could stop this." It was the question I had been asking myself for days. "It's complicated," I said, the words tasting like ash. "The man I work for, David Thorn, he won't stop. He believes this lie is a necessary evil to achieve a greater good." "There's no greater good in destroying an innocent man," he shot back, a flash of his father's fire in his eyes. "My dad has given his whole life to public service. He has a legacy, a family. Don't you people think about that?" I did. But in the cold calculus of a campaign, families were just collateral damage. "I'm here because I want to fix this," I said, the decision solidifying in my mind even as I spoke the words. I was done being a passenger in my own life. Leo looked at me with deep suspicion. "Fix it how? By threatening me? By sending your lawyers after me for blackmail?" "No, by telling the truth." I took a deep breath. "I need your help. The proof you have, the source code, the unrendered files, I need it. Not for $5 million, but because it's the right thing to do." He let out a bitter laugh. "The right thing to do? You have no idea what your campaign has done. My mother hasn't stopped crying for 3 days. My sister is being harassed at school. Reporters are camped outside our house like vultures. And you walk in here talking about the right thing to do?" Every word was a punch to the gut. I deserved it. "I know I don't deserve your trust," I said, my voice steady. "But David Thorn is going to be the next governor of California based on a lie. A lie he's willing to ruin people over. He threatened to destroy me if I spoke up. He's dangerous. More dangerous than your father ever was. If he gets into power with this secret hanging over his head, who knows what else he'll be willing to do? This isn't just about your father's reputation anymore. It's about what's next." I could see the conflict raging in his eyes. He had the power to expose us, but doing so would mean admitting he'd tried to extort my campaign. He was just a kid. He was terrified of the legal consequences. "I can protect you," I said, making a promise I wasn't entirely sure I could keep. "I'll hire the best lawyer. I'll make sure your role is framed as a whistleblower, not a blackmailer. I will take the fall for everything else, but I cannot do it without your evidence." He stared at his screen, at the lines of code that held the truth. He was quiet for a long time. The hum of the computer filled the silence. "There's something else," he finally said, his voice low. The program used to make the video. It's a proprietary algorithm. Very new, very sophisticated. It leaves a specific digital watermark on the final rendered file. I traced its signature. It was created by a small special effects studio in Burbank called Digital Mirage. My blood ran cold. Digital Mirage, I knew that name. Liam Gallagher, David's chief of staff, had approved a series of large, vaguely defined payments to that studio over the last 6 months. They were marked as consulting fees for digital media outreach. At the time, I hadn't thought twice about it. Liam handled the financials. But now, it was David's idea, was it? I whispered. It was Liam, Leo nodded. I think so. The source code wasn't created on your campaign servers. It was done by this third-party studio. They're the ones who built the weapon. It all clicked into place. David was the charismatic frontman, the true believer who would justify any action for his cause. But Liam was the architect, the cold, practical enforcer who made the impossible happen, no matter the moral cost. Send it to me, I said to Leo, my voice hard as steel. Send me everything you have. The source code, the watermark analysis, the connection to Digital Mirage. I'm going to end this. He looked at me, a long, searching gaze. He was putting his future and his family's in the hands of the woman who had helped orchestrate their downfall. He took a deep breath, turned to his computer, and with a few keystrokes sent a massive, encrypted file to my burner phone. It's done, he said, slumping back in his chair, utterly exhausted. What happens now? Now, I said, standing up and heading for the door, I go to war. I left the dorm and walked out into the cool California night. The weight on my shoulders was immense, but for the first time in a week, it wasn't the weight of guilt. It was the weight of purpose. I had the proof, I had the witness, and I had a target. The final debate was in less than 24 hours. David and Liam thought they were preparing for a victory speech. They had no idea they were preparing for their own execution. My career would be over. My name would be dragged through the mud. But I was going to burn their house of cards to the ground, and I was going to do it on the biggest stage imaginable. The air in the debate hall crackled with the electric tension of a championship fight. Backstage, it was an organized chaos of last-minute preparations. Sarah was fluttering around David, adjusting his tie, giving him a final pep talk. Liam stood silently in the corner, a grim sentinel, his eyes following me with a new, sharp intensity. He must have known something was wrong. I had been too quiet, too calm for the past 12 hours. It was the calm of a bomb before it detonates. You look pale, Jess, David said, turning his million-dollar smile on me. Don't worry, it's the final round. After tonight, we coast to victory. All you have to do is stand there and look proud of the machine you built. I am proud of what we built, David, I said, my voice even, my gaze unwavering. I'm just not proud of how we're winning. His smile tightened. We've been over this, it's done. Now get your game face on. He turned and walked towards the stage entrance, the cheers of the waiting audience already audible. Liam moved to follow him, but I stepped into his path. Digital Mirage, Liam, I said, my voice a low whisper. Those consulting fees, that was you, wasn't it? Building the weapon. His face, for the first time since I'd known him, lost its composure. A flicker of pure panic crossed his eyes before being replaced by cold fury. You have no idea what you're talking about, he hissed. Oh, I think I do, I said, holding up my phone where Leo's file was ready. I have the code, I have the watermark, I have the son of the man you framed, it's over. He lunged for the phone, but I was ready, stepping back. Don't, I warned. It's already been sent, to a dozen journalists, to my lawyer, and to a very interested U.S. attorney. The moment I give the word, they all hit send. He froze, his face ashen. He knew he was beat. You're throwing it all away, Jessica. For what? For Marcus Vance? For some misplaced sense of honor? I'm not doing it for him, I said. I'm doing it for me. I want to be able to sleep at night. I walked away from him, leaving him standing there, a statue of impotent rage. I found Sarah by the media entrance. She was practically vibrating with excitement. It's starting, she squealed. 5 minutes to showtime. Sarah, I need you to do something for me, I said, grabbing her by the shoulders, forcing her to focus. It's the most important thing I'll ever ask of you. I need you to call a press conference. For me, for 15 minutes from now, in the main briefing room. Her jaw dropped. For you, what are you talking about? The debate is about to start. This is more important than the debate, I said. Please, Sarah, as my friend, trust me. She saw the desperate sincerity in my eyes and for once didn't argue. She just nodded, her own eyes wide with confusion and concern, and hurried off to make the arrangements. I didn't watch the debate. I walked to the briefing room. It was empty, save for the podium and the dozens of empty chairs. I stood behind the podium, my hands gripping its sides, and waited. Soon, the reporters started trickling in, drawn by the sudden, unusual announcement. They were confused, whispering amongst themselves, wondering why the campaign manager was holding a briefing while her candidate was on live television. Through a monitor in the back of the room, I could hear the debate begin. David's voice, smooth and confident, filled the air. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah: "The room is full. It's all yours." I took one final, deep breath and stepped up to the microphones. The camera lights felt like interrogation's lamps, hot and blinding. "Good evening," I began, my voice amplified, unnaturally loud in the silent room. "My name is Jessica Sloan, and for the past 18 months I have been the campaign manager for David Thorne." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Tonight, while Mr. Thorne is on that stage talking about his vision for California, I have a different story to tell. A story about the truth, and about the high cost of the lies we tell to win." Over the next 10 minutes, I laid it all bare. I told them about the video. I called it what it was: a fraudulent, malicious deepfake. I told them how it was commissioned by Liam Gallagher through a third-party firm. I told them how David Thorne knew about it, approved of it, and then threatened me to ensure my silence. I didn't spare myself. I admitted my own complicity, my own blindness, my own ambition that led me to ignore the warning signs. The room was in stunned silence. The only sounds were the furious clicking of keyboards and the whirring of cameras. Then the questions came, a chaotic volley of shouts. "Are you saying your own candidate fabricated the central point of his campaign? Do you have proof of these allegations? Why are you doing this now?" "I have proof," I said, my voice ringing with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. "And it has been provided to the appropriate authorities and members of the press. As for why I'm doing this, because the means do not justify the ends. Because character is what you do when no one is watching. And because our democracy, our very sense of shared reality, is more important than any single election." As I finished, a frantic aide rushed into the room and whispered into the ear of a network producer. A moment later, on the monitor behind me, the debate feed was cut. It was replaced by a shot of my own press conference. I had hijacked the narrative. I had blown up the entire election on live television. The aftermath was a tidal wave. David and Liam were ambushed by a mob of reporters as they came off the stage. Their denials were weak, their faces a mask of shock and betrayal. Governor Vance immediately announced he was temporarily suspending his campaign pending a full investigation into the deepfake. Leo Vance, with a lawyer I provided, came forward as the whistleblower. My career, as David had promised, was over. I was fired, disgraced, and would likely face legal battles of my own. But as I walked out of that building, past the stunned faces of the volunteers and staff I had led, I didn't feel defeated. I felt free. In the weeks that followed, both David Thorne and Marcus Vance officially withdrew from the race, their campaigns irrevocably tainted. The special election was won by a third-party candidate, a quiet, unassuming woman who had been polling in the single digits, who won simply because she was the only one left with any integrity. I left politics. I moved to a small town up the coast and started a small consulting firm, helping nonprofits use technology ethically. One afternoon, months later, I received a handwritten letter. It was from Leo Vance. He thanked me for keeping my promise. He was not charged with any crime. He said his father was slowly rebuilding his life, and that, for the first time, they were able to talk honestly with each other. At the end of the letter, he wrote something that stuck with me. "You told me that night that you wanted to fix things. I think you did more than that. You reminded everyone that one person armed with the truth is still the most powerful thing in the world." He was right. I had lost my career, my reputation, and the world I thought I wanted. But in that televised act of self-destruction, I had found something I had misplaced along the way: myself. I had faced the king I created and refused to kneel. And in doing so, I had finally, truly won.